Hi everyone, welcome to another No More Future, and please, if you want to support this channel, you get it. Subscribe, comment down below, or like, you got it. Or watch this video up to the end, or watch my other videos. Other than that, let's get back to the game. Last we left off, we're about to go to a meeting. Either way, I'll need to borrow you in the synthetic for an important meeting right now. An important meeting? Cracked my neck. Normally, you wouldn't mind if the request came from Mary or someone else under her. But given that it's coming from him, you can't help but feel more than a little unsettled. Luckily, Mary always has your back. She advances towards the Drake courageously, unwilling to let him waltz into her laboratory unannounced and do as he pleases. I'm sorry, but I don't recall you scheduling any such meetings with me or Isaac in the last few days, and you know I'm on a very tight timetable already. Besides, we're leaving for lunch right now, so unless this is really important, we'll... Oh, but it is important. Extremely important, in fact. It's the owners. They're ready to see us right now. The entire second floor goes dead silent upon hearing Jasper's words. Mary first and foremost. She might not look as scared as you are, but the feline's eyes betray her stupor and uncertainty. The owners? Already? Oh dear. Who are these owners? They say. You board the elevator alongside Mary and Jasper, leaving your friend Natalie behind in the laboratory. Though she tries to follow along at first, mostly out of politeness, Jasper's insistence on this being a private meeting quickly proves enough to dissuade her. She shares with you an encouraging smile and a friendly wave, a last courtesy before your sudden departure. Then the door suddenly closes and your slow ascent begins. You feel a deadly mixture of fear and anxiety building up inside you as your very legs threaten to give out. Judging from Jasper's expression, he's definitely not bringing you in front of the owners or singing your praises, not like you ever expected him to anyway. In fact, considering how he reacted to finding out you'd been involved in a fight yesterday, you fully anticipate you'll be torn a new one and then some. And that's probably the best case scenario to boot. Noticing the grim look on your face, Mary tries to comfort you as best as she can. Don't worry, Isaac, you're going to be fine. Hopefully. We're just gonna have a brief talk with the owners and then you're free to go. Easy as that. Sorry, a little bit late on that one. The Drake scoffs at the Siamese remarks, which you assume is his way of showing disagreement. Are you sure about that? Of course I am. I'm always sure. Still, I can't say I blame you for being worried. It's only natural, really. But as long as you stay calm, quiet, and by my side, you'll come out of this just fine. You want me to be quiet? What if they ask something of me? Then you reply as briefly and calmly as you can. But even then, I'd recommend letting me do most of the talking. I have more experience dealing with them than you do after all, so trust me and everything will be alright. As much as you'd like to do just that, you can't bring yourself to fully commit to your friend's optimism. After all, you have no idea what sort of people these owners are. You're clueless as to what sort of attitude they hold towards synthetics and towards you. But with them being at the head of Pandora, they must certainly have enough power to impact Mary's entire project. Jasper at least seems to think so. Enough power to figuratively and literally pull the plug on you. Ah, there you go again. Stop looking so glum. I said you're gonna be fine. You have nothing to fear from this meeting, I promise. The Drake gets awfully close to laughing once again, finally inviting the ire of the scientists. Well, at least someone's here is having fun. Am I? I disagree. I was just thinking about what Bradbury said yesterday. I think he's right. You do make a lot of promises you can't keep. Jasper's words are like a cold poison, sending shivers down your spine as they slowly make their way into your head, casting doubts with it wherever they seep. Mary must have built up a resistance to them over time, however, as her reaction is much less submissive and a lot more ferocious. You can act as cocky as you want. It won't make you any less wrong. If you think your arguments will be enough to stop me, you're sorely mistaken. Had the owners been interested in getting rid of me, they would have done so a long time ago. So go ahead, make your funky little speech and see where that leads you. It's only our time you're wasting after all. The Drake merely shakes his head at the scientist's comments, looking entirely unimpressed. And you have the gall to call me cocky. After everything you and your synthetic pulled, you'll be lucky if you still get to keep your job. Where's that thing? He'll be lucky if he gets to come out of that room outside of a dumpster, is what you imagine he'll say. And for once, you can't say you entirely disagree with that assessment. If the owners end up agreeing that your actions, although not necessarily illegal, are a threat to their company's image, you don't expect things to end up as, well for you in the slightest. But just before the dragon can say that, Mary quiets him down once again. He'll come out of this just fine. Now stop trying to scare him and go back to rehearsing whatever dumb speech you have ready for the occasion, asshole. You can hear something crack as Jasper's fist tightens up like a vice grip, instilling even more fear in your metaphorical heart. Scratch that. When I'm done with you today, you won't even have a house left. You're lucky that Mary doesn't seem all that bothered by the Drake's venomous threats, given how easily his tone of voice alone paralyzes you utterly. You're not sure whether her open defiance in front of her fiery superior is born of courage, wisdom, or sheer foolishness. But at the very least, she's managed to retain a clear head in spite of all the pressure. As for you, it appears as though all you can do is rest your hopes with the unruly Siamese and pray that she somehow manages to get you out of the upcoming meeting unscathed. We've arrived. The elevator doors finally open after what felt like an eternity to a spacious, grandiose room you've never seen before. The Drake leaves first, followed by the scientist. And then, regrettably, by you. Oh, this is what it was. You enter a room unlike any other you've seen in this building before. Spacious doesn't even begin to describe its size, which seems to stretch from one end of the building to the other. And with the roof so distant from your head that you could mistake it for the firmament itself. The room is rich in decor, filled to the brim with statues and monoliths ranging in color from the purest whites to the darkest of blacks, as well as numerous plants of strikingly similar colors. You're not sure whether the regal look of this place is supposed to command respect or fear. Step into a stainless golden carpet leading further into the room. Jasper and Mary are already a fair distance ahead of you, heading towards a large table on the other side, and you cautiously make haste to rejoin them. As you try to shorten the distance between the three of you, you give another glance at the spherical ceiling that encapsulates the whole room as though it were a snow globe. You're quite sure this is the same sphere as the one you could see from outside Pandora's headquarters, which gives the building its iconic appearance. Does this mean you're standing at the top of that building then? You suppose it makes sense given you're about to meet the men in charge of the whole company here. Still, this is rather strange. That globe appeared to be made of glass when you stared at it from outside, but then, why does it look like... Well, you're not sure what it looks like, truth be told. Its surface is so uneven and strange it could be mistaken for... Hey. Mary slows her pace down a tad to catch up with you, reaching over your back with one arm to draw you in as she whispers quietly in your ear. I know this place is creepy as hell, but I need you to look forward from now on, alright? God forbid these idiots think you aren't paying them the respect they think they deserve. You instinctively gulp at the Siamese words and silently reprimand yourself for letting your gaze wander at a time when it really shouldn't be. You're not sure what sort of people these owners are, but given how much power they wield, you definitely don't want to be caught doing anything that might upset them. You take her advice to heart as you refocus your stare into the desk on the other end of the room and towards the people sitting behind it. Two people sit at the farthest edges of the table, a rabbit and a pangolin. They appear to be rather advanced in years, and their curated attire suggests that they're far richer and more powerful than you'll probably ever be. They give you a handful of silent stares as you advance towards them, but for the most part they largely ignore you, preferring to focus their attention towards the cat and the Drake accompanying you. All in all, as off-putting as they seem, they don't strike you as particularly threatening. At least nowhere near as much as the other man sitting at the table, right in the center. The bald eagle requires no introductions. You need only briefly glance at him to understand who this man truly is. Mr. Morgan is a grim reflection of his nephew. Or perhaps Jasper is a brighter reflection of his grandfather. Either way, you can clearly see where the CEO got his poster and that grisly look in his eyes from. He appears to be the sort of man you would never ever want to cross, or talk to, or exist on the same plane of existence as. He doesn't even seem to acknowledge you as the three of you grow closer, and you can't tell whether that's a good or bad thing. Amidst the silence that even envelops the whole room like a blanket, Jasper steadily approaches the owner's desk while you and the Siamese wait patiently behind. He keeps his arms folded behind his back, likely out of deference, as he turns to address his superiors. Mr. Algon, Miss Lightning, grandfather. He gives a special nod to the eagle sitting at the center of the table, though he earns no visible reply from him for doing so. Good morning. I hope there weren't any issues with your flights. There weren't, in spite of how quickly they had to be arranged for. I swear, you and your impromptu meetings. That man, Mr. Algon or whatever, appears to be rather quick to anger. Jasper didn't so much as look in his direction and is already up in arms. Indeed, we haven't had a need for a meeting for quite a long while. Though that doesn't make your insistence at calling us all here so hastily any less inconsiderate. The woman, on the other hand, appears far more calm and reserved, though by no means any friendlier. Even you can feel the air of indifference that exudes from her gaze alone, in spite of her attempts at concealing it through tranquility and politeness. However, neither she nor her companion on the other end of the table are the source of your worries and apprehension. The eagle sitting in between them hasn't moved an inch ever since the conversation began, as if he was made of stone. And yet, even that's not an apt analogy. Underneath his seemingly immobile gaze, you can feel a swarm of calculating thoughts hiding underneath, and a million eyes watching over every subtle movement in the room. So, would you care to explain yourself, Jasper? Even his voice is similar to the verdant drake, though perhaps even lower still in tone. Luckily for him, Jasper isn't bothered in the slightest by his grandfather's chill-inducing voice, though it's probably because he's far more accustomed to it than you. I apologize for rushing you all here with relatively little forewarning, but this meeting is indeed necessary, as you'll understand in just a few minutes. The situation of the synthetic project has reached a boiling point that neither I nor you can no longer ignore. And all this is because of the actions of this lady right here. Jasper suddenly turns to face you and Mary. His composed stance becomes a little more aggressive as he does so, making his feelings on the two of you as clear as day for all to see. Though he expected the owners to be interested by the topics of conversation brought forth by the drake, the pangolin and the rabbit don't seem anywhere near as impressed by his words as either of you thought they'd be. So this meeting's all about synthetics. Again. Simply wonderful. Are you referring to the lot of them in general or that one over there in particular, Clearly he means that one specifically, else there'd be no reason to let it witness this private meeting. Let it witness? Well, so much for hoping for the best. More people who view you as nothing more than a machine, and this time they're the very ones responsible for the project that created you. Are Mary and her team truly the only ones in this company willing to entertain the possibility of your humanity? But then why are these people financing a project they don't even believe in? Because they're extremely rich. That's what I think. You don't even have time to worry about that as Jasper continues where the pangolin left off. Correct, Miss Lightning. This synthetic is particularly relevant to our discussion here today, and so I thought it was, wise to invite him or here alongside his maker for purely demonstrational purposes, of course. Purely demonstrational purposes. Well, you should at least be happy that he's not going to ask you to defend yourself with your own words, even if the implications of that don't sit quite well as with you. Still, what in the world could he need from you then? You have a few ideas in mind already and all of them have you on edge. Having said that, I reckon we've spent enough time introducing the topic. allow me to explain why I brought you here exactly. I'll be frank. I want Dr. Shelley to be removed from her position and for the synthetic project's existence to be reevaluated. The whole room falls silent with shock at Jasper's thunderous statement. Even you are left thoroughly speechless before the Drake's bold words. You knew this meeting was important already, but never to this extent. Have you gone mad? Without Dr. Shelley's knowledge and expertise, there would hardly be a project to reevaluate. You're essentially asking that we pull the plug on this entire initiative. In a way, I suppose you're correct, yes. This is bad. Terribly bad. Mary and her team are the only people in this entire building who seem to care about you in the slightest. Even if the project could stay afloat without her, there's no telling what manner of disasters could befall you in her absence. Especially considering everything you've done in the past few days. You send a pleading look Mary's way, hoping that she will catch on to how much this discussion means to you. But her eyes are transfixed into the belligerent dragon, like a warrior ready to parry whatever their enemy throws at them. You hope that she understands how high the stakes have been raised now. I still don't understand why you'd want Dr. Shelley gone. I'm aware that there's always been some bad blood between the two of you, but... Bad blood? That's putting it mildly, Miss Lightning. But to answer your question, Dr. Shelley has proven herself to be a dangerous individual in charge of an even more dangerous project. She's not only unfit for her role, but an active detriment to this entire company. As such, I ask that you purge her from her duties, effective immediately. Mary's eyes slide towards the ceiling at the CEO's accusation, though that's hardly enough to stop the spew of vitriol that is coming her way. Across the 10 years I've been working here, Dr. Shelley has always been particularly difficult to keep in check. Her perennial lateness and almost total inability to relay her progress reports to me on time is nothing short of legendary. And in the past few years, these nasty habits of hers have only grown worse. Her progress reports are shady at best. Her reasoning behind her operative choices, whenever provided, is utterly nonsensical, and it's still impossible to tell just what in the world she's doing at any given time. How in the world are we meant to trust and rely on someone who deliberately hides so much of what she's doing from her superiors? The feline reacts to the torrent of accusations with nothing more than a condescending sneer. Maybe the problem is that you think I'm meant to be kept in check to begin with. You couldn't possibly have heard that right, you reason? That's her reply, Mary? You couldn't think of anything better than that? She's confident in herself, you'll give her that. I gotta be honest, she's been working for Pandora for 40 years. She knows how to get things done. That's why she hasn't been fired. That's what I think. She's confident in herself, you'll give her that, but confidence alone isn't enough when all you have to defend yourself are snarky and unhelpful remarks like that. However, if her goal was to rile up the dragon before her even further, she most certainly achieved it. Why, you? Before he can interject, Mary begins to explain herself properly. I'll admit, I sometimes forget to deliver utterly unnecessary paperwork on time and seldom provide reports on the progress of my team. But that's to be expected given the scale of what I'm working with on a day-to-day basis. And really, why in the world am I supposed to keep you up to date with what I'm doing anyway? You may be the CEO, but that doesn't mean you're my boss. Don't try to weasel your way out of this, Shelley. Just because you're the head of the synthetic department doesn't mean you don't answer to anyone. Until proven otherwise, you're an employee of this company. The head of your department no less. And that means that you report directly to me like everyone else does. As convincing as his argument sounds to you, Mary doesn't sound impressed by it in the least. Like I already said, there's really no reason why I should keep you updated on every little thing we're doing, like you so often ask of me and my team. After all, the only reason you're overseeing this project in the first place is to keep track of our budget, and I make sure to keep our reports on that front squeaky clean. So Jasper only looks after the funding of the project. Not unsurprising given all you've learned about him so far. If that's true, then perhaps Mary's argument isn't quite as shoddy as you thought it was. It's not the left hand's job to know what the right one is doing and all that. But even you can tell that it's not going to be quite that simple. The budgets are rather curated, I'll admit. At the very least, you don't shy away from highlighting how much of our money you're sapping away every day. Money that could benefit hundreds of thousands of far more deserving businesses instead of being wasted on this farce of a project. Give me a break. You can act offended as much as you want, but even you can't deny the truth. All the billions upon billions of dollars you're wasting helping people die could be spent in countless ways on businesses that help people live. It makes a fair argument, you have to admit. You can definitely see why someone who doesn't believe the usefulness of this technology would want the money invested in it devoted to other alternatives. But this still doesn't tell you why he despises synthetics to begin with, and it's also not enough to deter Mary from railing into her superior further. We already are helping them live. We're giving hope to those who have none and paving the road for innovation the likes of which the world has never seen before. Just because you refuse to believe it doesn't make me unfit to continue my work. That's not how it works, you mindless... That's enough! Mr. Morgan quiets down the whole room with nothing more than a well-timed shout. We're getting off topic. We're here to have a serious discussion, not a screaming match between children. Turns towards his nephew once again, a cold flame burning in his eyes. I will give you a final opportunity to make your case. Make it count. Jasper hardly flinches under his grandfather's ice-cold stare in spite of the pressure he undoubtedly feels upon his shoulders. All in all, arguments so far haven't quite managed to make the impact either of you thought you'd have. The owners don't look particularly impressed, and Mary didn't even need to say that much to shatter his momentum. But you know deep down that this doesn't matter in the slightest. Jasper has barely begun tearing into the two of you, and the greatest hurdle to overcome is yet to appear. I understand. In that case, if I may. The Drake attempts to rein himself in as he distributes some smooth-looking tablets to the owners, and it doesn't take long for both you and your friend to figure out what they're meant for. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the now viral video that involves our synthetic here, where he clearly pushes a police officer around, disregards his instructions, and proceeds to flee the scene as though nothing happened. The video begins playing in the background, the all too familiar voices of those officers playing loudly both through the speakers and in your mind. This is where the true battle begins, the moment where the distracted looks in the owner's gazes might degenerate into something far worse. I don't need to explain how the actions of that synthetic threaten the stability and the reputation of this institution, and it sets a dangerous precedent for these androids and for us who are creating them. The video has already been seen over 1 billion times by customers all over the globe, and we are aware of that, yes. What of it? The rabbit's tired words don't appear to mean much at first, yet they're enough to shock and confuse you and Jasper both. The pangolin interjects next. You say you don't need to explain why that android's actions are concerning, but I personally disagree. From what I've seen, the synthetic reacted adequately given the circumstances. It's certainly not enough to call this project and Dr. Shelley's leadership position into question. You thought they'd react poorly upon learning of that altercation. Well, they're the owners. They put in a lot of money, and this thing better be a hole-in-one, you know? They're all busy, and time is money. And this is a meeting. They thought they were like, oh, there's gonna be something big, you know? All three of us here. Kind of crazy. Oh, it's just this. Yeah, it's just a video, really. They don't really give a damn, okay? Public opinion is still middle ground. What they need is the rich people. Looks like there's already a long line of waiting, or a waiting list of people wanting to be a synthetic. But for them, no problem. Lots of money, big return of investment. They thought they'd react poorly upon learning of that altercation. Jasper most certainly did. And yet they seem hesitant to treat it as anything more than a minor distraction at best and a total insignificance at worst. As hopeful and utterly confused as this makes you feel, the Drake doesn't appear interested in giving up in the slightest. And why do you think that, Miss Lightning? The pangolin seems to lose her grip on the conversation for a second, uncertain what exactly the Drake is inquiring. What are you talking about? I'm saying that maybe you only believe that because you think this is a one-time thing, because we could always shove all burdens of responsibility into those policemen on account of this being a lone freak accident. But that's precisely why we're here today, because this wasn't just a one-time thing. That incident was only the first time our synthetic here did something regrettable like attacking somebody unjustifiably. Indeed, this is what this conversation has been leading up to all this time. The incident you always knew Jasper was going to mention and only wondered when he'd actually do so. You'd never been more scared of where this conversation is going to head next, and neither have your interlocutors have been more befuddled. It wasn't the first time? I haven't heard anything about this. Of course you wouldn't know about it. Dr. Shelley here, as I made clear earlier, has a gnarly habit of keeping all the crucial facts to herself until it is too late. But with the FBI already on the hunt, it might be a matter of days before the truth comes out and everybody becomes aware of what transpired. Mary gives Jasper a blood-chilling look as he tiptoes around the subject, looking simultaneously annoyed and powerless to stop him. You're pretty sure he's enjoying this, although it's rather hard to tell thanks to that apathetic look on his face. Nevertheless, this new information has provided us clearly won him the favor of the owners. Even Mr. Morgan seems intrigued somewhat. What are you referring to exactly? Well, I'm referring to the fight that our synthetic started on the evening of the very day he attacked that police officer. The Drake suddenly turns to face you, a triumphant look in his eyes, followed suit by all the people sitting behind that desk. You feel a sudden urge to run away from where you stand, hoping to escape from the consequences of your own actions, but somehow you manage to remain right where you stand, silent and still like a glorified statue. According to this summary of events, he engaged a group of thugs who were supposedly threatening another boy and brutally fought them off. All of a sudden, that altercation with the police is no longer looking like an isolated incident, is it? The rabbit and the pangolin appear rather startled by the truth revealed by the CEO and definitely more invested in this conversation than they ever were before. They turn to face the scientist at your side. He speaks the truth? Mary hesitates for a moment, unsure what to reply. She could admit to the truth or she could try denying it. Knowing her, she's most certainly considering the latter option. But Jasper won't give her the time to come up with a plan that easy. It's a yes or no question, Dr. Shelley. Answer it. A few moments later, the feline admits defeat with an almost imperceptible sigh. It's true, yes, Isaac did partake in a fight while returning home the other day, and we know because we have video evidence from this point of view in, the events. You were being recorded? Mary never mentioned that before. Though you suppose it makes sense considering how quickly everything unfolded. After a few tentative seconds, the rabbit moves to inquire further about the subject. I see. Does anyone else know about this within the company? Not at all. The only ones aware of what transpired are me, Jasper, and Isaac, of course. Now that's a big fat lie if I've ever heard one. What is Mary even thinking? Lying like that to her superiors? Good thing that you didn't tell Jasper about Natalie's involvement yesterday. Had you done so, he would have certainly claimed both of your heads by now. What about the other kid and those thugs Jasper mentioned earlier? The youth fled as soon as Isaac arrived on the scene, whereas the hoodlums that attacked him, well, I don't think I need to explain why we'll never hear from them again. There's no way they'd be able to implicate Isaac or Pandora without landing themselves behind bars as well. It's safe to say that this issue has taken care of itself. Yet more lies coming from the feline's sweet-talking mouth, and all of them could easily be disproven if anyone here asked to watch the footage she's so confidently referring to. You pray to whatever god is out there that you somehow manage to get out of here without a second of that video shown to the owners. At the very least, our combined deception has managed to keep all your friends out of harm's way for the time being. If you weren't utterly terrified right now, you could almost feel, proud of yourself. So Dr. Shelley boldly admits that this thing she made ruthlessly assaulted those men the other day, and we're still debating the merits of keeping either of them around. Then Rage Cat swiftly turns to face her superior, an outraged look in her eyes. You're misrepresenting the facts, Jasper. You're acting as though Isaac deliberately sought a fight, when that was anything but the case. Those idiots swung first, and all Isaac did was react accordingly. They were the ones who escalated the confrontation. What else was he supposed to do given the situation? Not be in it for starters. I'm sure your android had every opportunity to flee even after being attacked. But instead he chose to stay, fully aware of the consequences of his actions. That's what Daphne told you the other day, that you had no reason to get involved, or rather, that you had every reason not to. And yet you fought those people off nonetheless, in spite of all the trouble it would conjure, just because they thought it was the right thing to do. You're not sure how much that justification will hold up in his meeting room, but Mary appears determined to get to that point across as much as she can. And what, leave that kid to be harassed and possibly hurt or killed? What sort of heartless monster would do that? Isaac acted selflessly in defense of that young boy, in spite of the consequences, if that doesn't prove that. What it proves that he is as reckless and deranged as you are, Dr. Shelley. The Drake shuts the feline up with a deafening roar. You forget your place. You think that this is some sort of children's cartoon and that your android over there is some sort of righteous superhero that is exempt from consequences for their actions. But we are a company, the most important one on the planet for that matter, and if someone else were to find out the truth about what happened, the consequences would be catastrophic for us all. Especially considering that you explicitly planned ahead for something like that fight to occur and outfitted your synthetic accordingly. Mary's jaw swings open to the sound of Jasper's accusation, and even the owners themselves don't seem to know how to react to his startling words. Excuse me? Again, Jasper turns to face you. You! Showed him. It takes you a little while to understand what he's talking about, and when you do, your uncertainty reaches heights you never experienced before. Is he really asking me to show them that thing? How does he even know about it? I never even mentioned it to him. More importantly, should I do it? If I do, they'll most certainly... Before you can even feel the Drake's impatient gaze piercing right through your steel-clad skin, you can feel Mary's gentle hand resting on your shoulder. It's okay, go ahead. So she says, but is it truly fine to show them, knowing what will follow? Nonetheless, it doesn't appear as though you have a choice in the matter. All you can do is hope for the best as you think your tail open and unveil to the horrified rabbit and pangolin what hides within. Is that a fucking taser? And you brought that thing here where it could kill us all in a heartbeat if it wish? They look utterly terrifying, just as you were afraid they would be, just like Jasper was hoping they would be. At last, you're seeing my point exactly. This woman deliberately sick in her trained mutt into the world and equipped it with illegal weaponry that'll get us all imprisoned. Now you understand how our customers out there feel, knowing that this creature is free to roam the streets unsupervised every single day. How they'll feel if this technology is ever allowed to be released to the public. His baleful gaze meets Mary's once again, and devious thoughts likely swarming his mind as he speaks. But I'm sure you don't mind, do you, Shelley? You know perfectly well what you were doing when you bestowed that taser into that android. It's as though you expected... No, it's as though you were looking for something like this to happen. Oh please, you're looking too deep into my actions. All I did was to make sure Isaac would be ready should be the worst, come to pass. It's truly nowhere near as bad as you think it is. Nowhere near. Are you out of your mind? You're putting the lives of innocent people in danger, all for the sake of testing and experimenting, exposing him to this abomination of science for your sick pleasure. Abomination of science? Surely you jest. He's a person who was forced against his will to partake in a situation none of us wish. He's a menace to society, Shelley, armed to the teeth with illegal weaponry, with a near invulnerable body that could kill people by just looking at them wrong. You're clearly exaggerating. No, you're the one who isn't taking this nearly as seriously as she should. You're so lost in the nonsense you're sprouting, you don't even see the threat you're unleashing on this company. No, on the whole world. I won't sit idly by while you let this android tear down everything we've built, all for the sake of some make-believe immortality. He turns to face the owners once again, an angered but deeply focused look on his face. Surely you agree with me. But no one answers. You take a long look at the rabbit and the pangolin. They seem uncertain of how best to react to everything that just happened. Not like you can blame them. You're completely floored yourself. All that you can do, much like them, is send anxious looks in the direction of the ever-serious eagle, who appears to be the only one left in the room with anything left to say. Dr. Shelley, I don't recall any mentions of taser tails and similar gadgetry in your pitch for the synthetic project so many decades ago. Care to explain these recent deviations in your designs? Amidst the shocked looks of both you and the dragon, Mary gracefully steps forward, a proud and confident smile on her face. I think they go way back. Come on. She's been working for this man for years. She's like what, 64, 63? Working on for 40 years, or in Pandora for 40 years. They go way back. And she made him a lot of money. It means she's been... A lot of her decisions been good. Wait, did I... Amidst the shot... Okay, yeah, I read that. I assume I don't need to explain our need to preserve our current synthetics, given the wealth of knowledge and data we can acquire from them. The non-lethal weaponry we installed in Isaac was meant to protect him should he become involved in a dangerous situation, that's all. Considering that neither the FBI nor the police have provided suitable alternatives, I took it upon myself to provide Isaac with alternative, and most importantly, discreet methods of protection. You half expect her to try and defend herself further to elucidate all the reasons why the truth isn't anywhere near as bad as it obviously is. But she doesn't, and clearly she doesn't have to. So this could be considered a means of protecting the merchandise. It's an unconventional solution, but given the circumstances, the two people at the Eagle side buy into her excuse without a shred of hesitation, as though she just explained in rigorous detail why 2 plus 2 equals 4. As for Jasper's grandfather, he merely limits himself to a curt nod and a pensive grunt, much to the ires of his nephew. Please tell me you're not buying this. They even shoots an angry look at his younger relative, quietly letting him know that the time to build his case is over. He then focuses his gaze once more onto the cocky-looking lady before him. Dr. Shelley, I didn't remind you that these non-lethal solutions must not make it into the final product. I can see why you'd feel the need to implement them at this stage, but what Jasper said is right. They are a step too far. The feline shudders a little at the Eagle's implicit request, but she respectfully bows as she acknowledges it. They absolutely won't, Mr. Morgan. They were nothing more than a temporary solution to guarantee the protection of our research materials, so to say. I will directly force you to the removal of that taser from Isaac's tail. It will not bother us again. Good. Then I'd call this matter settled. There's nothing left to add. Settled? Now more than ever, the viridescent Drake looks on the verge of snapping someone's neck. You're truly going to let her continue her work with nothing more than a slap on the wrist? That is correct. You're right, of course, about the danger it would pose our company if the public became aware of that synthetic's actions. But as long as we can keep this accident wrapped up, we didn't worry about distractions like those. As such, I ask that all copies of the footage relating to the event be destroyed immediately. No one must find out the truth of what transpired. You didn't say it twice, Mr. Morgan. I will take care of that myself and ensure that no traces remain. You honestly cannot believe what you've heard just now. He's actually asking Mary to destroy the only piece of evidence that could prove just how full of shit she really is. The look on Jasper's face surprises it could belong in an art gallery. Perhaps he's cursing himself under his breath for not asking the footage be reviewed before it was too late. Though of course he can't be certain. All he can do is, well, it seems he helplessly watches his grandfather ends all hope of things going his way before his eyes. Now then, if that is all, the Eagle makes it as if to stand up and conclude the meeting right there and then, but Jasper resolutely steps forward to prevent that. You're joking, right? After everything that woman and her synthetic pet have done, you can't possibly let them. Enough! The elder Eagle's voice echoes in the room like thunder in a storm. It's enough to quiet everyone down in an instant and turn them into a shriveling infant, even the two people sitting by his side. Both you, Mary and Jasper immediately turn to face the latter's grandfather, whose grim expression remains as indecipherable as ever. We have entertained this endless discussion for long enough. I believe it is time we resolve this quarrel once and for all. Mr. Morgan turns to face his grandson, who doesn't seem to bat an eye even under the weight of his ice-cold stare. A normal person would be quaking in their boots under such pressure, but the entire extent of his reaction is a few twitches in his fingers. You've made your points ample clear, Jasper. Your dedication to this company is admirable, and I wholeheartedly respect your viewpoints on the matter. But it is not your place to argue which projects we should finance and which ones we should not. That decision lies with us, and us alone. The Drake makes as if to retort, but he ultimately sends all the words he wishes to share down his gullet. Imagine that interrupting the Eagle in the midst of one of his arguments is a mistake you can only make once. Our decision to finance the synthetic project was made long ago for a reason, and that's final. We will no longer discuss the merits or not of this project, regardless of your feelings on it. Your worries over the funds we've sunk into this technology are noted, but if Dr. Shelley deems them necessary to ensure the success of this initiative, then that's a sacrifice we're willing to endure. Yet more suppressed grumblings from the Drake, especially now that the Eagle's words are beginning to rouse a smile from the Siamese. Is Mary truly going to win this debate so easily after everything Jasper revealed? Judging from the Eagle's tone, that may well be the case. We understand your apprehensions over Dr. Shelley's questionable work ethic. But she has proven over the last 4 decades to be an invaluable asset to this company that simply cannot be replaced. Her methods may be unconventional, but they have been proven to work time and time again, so long as she can fulfill her obligations and deliver what we've agreed with her. How she goes about achieving this goal is irrelevant, especially to you. You see the reptile's fist tightening and shaking behind his back, and for a second you fear that Jasper may just do something extremely stupid. I kinda get it. Dr. Shelley here pitched this whole idea, or any of the ideas she has, to the owners first. It's their deal, not his, not the CEO's. And it has been agreed a long time ago. At the same time, yeah, I agree. I think the owners would just, or the investors, or whoever, literally owners of this company, would be like, oh, well, with the synthetic project is getting a little bit too hot, you know? Big bad. Might threaten the company. We're shutting it down immediately. They do that themselves. That's what I think. But just like always, he somehow manages to exhale his frustrations out of his nostrils, right before he can unleash them. Well, most of them at least. Understood, sir. I will not question your judgment again. Good. I appreciate your consideration and understanding. Keep to your duties, and I assure you that your dedication to this company will be greatly rewarded. Now that's a vague promise if you've ever heard one, and it's clearly not enough to please the fuming Drake in the slightest. But he has no further room to argue, and so all he can do is bow politely and pretend as though he's satisfied with his grandfather's words. Of course, Mary couldn't be more overjoyed to hear that. Though she's doing her best to stay calm and composed, you can already hear the laughter coming from within her throat. She's going to have a field day poking fun at Jasper once all is said and done. But just before any of you can call it a day and head back from whence you came, Mr. Morgan speaks once again. Having said that, I do agree with one of your points. The Drake is just as stunned to hear that as you or Mary are. You do? Indeed. The eagle suddenly turns to face the feline once again, who appears thoroughly startled by this sudden development, as though she didn't expect Mr. Morgan to have anything left to say by now. We are behind on our schedule. It's been almost a year since our first synthetic prototypes were completed, yet you're still nowhere near ready for public distribution. We have hundreds of establishments all over the globe ready to process tens of thousands of synthetics per day, yet none of them have officially opened their doors. Care to elaborate on that, Dr. Shelley? You can see some of Mary's color draining from her face as both you and her begin to fear the implications of Mr. Morgan's query. We have adapted our timetable to allow for more extensive testing of our synthetics, conscience, and humanity, as you're all well aware. Unless we can reliably prove the usefulness and effectiveness of this technology, all our efforts to develop it will have been for... You're misunderstanding my point. The eagle interrupts the feline in the midst of her explanation, and she hesitantly obliges. You never seen her react so submissively before, even while being railed by Jasper the other day. That's what she said. It's definitely not a comforting sight. Like we already established, you're taking far too long to develop this technology. Our funds may be unlimited, but our patience is not. We will need to set a more stringent deadline to ensure that you deliver the results we seek. The eagle's choice of words, though highly confusing, is more than enough to send chills down your cybernetic spine. Even Mary's more than taken aback by what she's heard. Excuse me, a deadline? Indeed. You held an interview with the New Herald the other day, didn't you? What was it that you said at that time in regards to how long people should wait for this technology to be available? The scientist hesitates to answer, fumbling around in a vain attempt to prolonging the inevitable. Jasper takes it upon himself to answer his grandfather's query, though it brings him no joy to do so. At least give us until Christmas. Yes, that's what I seem to recall. But we'll be generous. You have until the 31st of December. You almost faint upon hearing those words, and the Siamese is not too far behind. The 31st? But that's only a month from now. Ample time to finish our preparations, wouldn't you say? If you still need evidence that this technology is safe for human use, you will need to have it ready by then. Otherwise, the eagle never finishes his sentence. He doesn't need to. You already have a good idea of what might happen if the Siamese can't fulfill her obligations. Mary hesitates for a moment, as the true weight of the situation hits her all at once, as though the very ceiling of this room abruptly collapsed on top of her. They never spoke of deadlines before, and for that matter, neither did Jasper, and yet they suddenly imposed one on her as though it had always been there. How in the world is she meant to fulfill their expectations? How is she supposed to find out whether you're alive or not in little more than a month? Neither you, the Drake, or even her knows for certain, but the Siamese replies nonetheless as firm as steel. I understand. We will do what we can. Excellent. I always knew we could count on you, Dr. Shelley. Maybe they can, but you? You're beginning to feel quite a lot different about this whole thing. When Mr. Morgan dismissed Jasper's accusations, you almost hoped for a second that your friend had been right in her predictions, that you might have managed to leave this room unscathed after all. But it only took a few words from the ruthless eagle to send that hope straight to hell, and for a grim shadow to be cast over the feline's ambitious project. A mere 30 days or so to defy all reason, and prove your humanity once and for all? And with the specter of the project being cancelled, or worse, if she cannot succeed... Feeling more hopeless and angry than ever, you turn to face the Drake once again, expecting Jasper to be pleased by these restrictions being imposed on his colleague. Instead, you find him just as speechless and uncertain as Mary is, for reasons you can't even begin to imagine. As if finally noticing the reactions his words have caused on you all, Mr. Morgan turns to face his grandson once again, a curious look in his eyes. Perhaps Jasper here could give you a hand in your research. It's difficult to say that the eagle's sudden interjection shocked any of you, given that the three of you were already more than traumatized already. Excuse me? You still have doubts over the synthetic sentience, correct? I conclude as much from some of your arguments today. Perhaps there's a way you could challenge your viewpoints and aid your colleague in her endeavors in one fell swoop. Why don't you spend some time with that one over there every once in a while, for starters? It'll allow you to keep an eye on it better than you'd otherwise be able to, and provide an opportunity to interact with and test it at your leisure. Damn. Whoa, Mr. Morgan over here just literally said, alright everybody, sit your asses down. I was doing my own thing, you call us for this meeting. I'm here to get some little bit of blood, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna come out of here unscathed. All of you. We don't even have time to process just what in the world the man's asking his grandson before the latter gets one step away from speaking out of turn. You're asking me to invite him out. Nothing as dramatic as that. All I want is for you to get a feel for the synthetics. If our customers ever have access to our synthetic technology, you'll have to interact with them on a day-to-day basis. Getting some experience with this one now will serve you greatly in the long run. And as I previously said, it's an excellent opportunity to gauge whether your opinions on them are founded or not. It might even help Mary with her studies. It take longer than you probably need trying to make sense of Mr. Morgan's suggestion. Is he truly telling Jasper to spend more time with you? That sounds more like a personal insult to everything the Drake just said than a genuine piece of advice. And the Drake seems to share your thoughts on the matter exactly. Not even he can hide all of the anger and embarrassment he feels as he subduedly replies to his superior. Very well. I will do as you ask. Good. I knew you'd understand. Now then, I'd say we've achieved what we set out to accomplish here. I thank you for your time. You may now return to your duties. So he says, in spite of Mary and Jasper's faces clearly showing that they wish to discuss more. You have expect a rebuttal coming from them, or at least some sort of passive-aggressive farewell after everything they had to endure. But professionals have standards, everybody. All of that comes out of them in a simple half bow before they turn tail and head back towards the exit. As for you, all you can do is stare petrified at the elderly eagle on the other side of the room, who hasn't stopped gazing at you since giving his underlings his farewells. His eyes are cold, and his stare is dreadful to return, and yet you can hardly look away from him, afraid as you are of failing some unspecified test and incubing his wrath. You spend what feels like an eternity locked in this state, regretting your choice to ever look in his way in the first place, before finally, hey! A familiar voice beckons you as a tender hand reaches for your shoulder. We're leaving. The feline's words take a while to reach you, shocked and confused as you are, and so do your arms and legs before you can move them again. But eventually, you give a firm nod to the scientist and begin to follow her outside of the owner's meeting room. Ah, and one more thing, Dr. Shelley. Both you and Mary freeze in place upon hearing Mr. Morgan speak. You believe the polite thing to do would be to turn around and look into his eyes as he speaks, but if you did that, you don't know if you'd be able to gaze away afterwards. Clearly, Mary's the same mind as you are, as she sits perfectly still while her boss continues his speech. I don't know what you see in that android or why you decided to let it wander around the country like some kind of lost pet, and frankly, I don't care. I'd say you were due for a treat or two anyhow, even if this complicates our life somewhat. But you, more than anyone, should know that the company always comes first. Make sure we never have to choose between it and your little science project. And that's all the eagle had to say, it would seem. Not long after, you and Mary resume walking towards the elevator, your legs feeling as though they're wading through a swamp. Maybe you'll finally feel safe once you're out of this place? Most likely, you won't. Jasper's already waiting for the two of you inside the elevator, a grim look in his eyes as you tiredly approach. You step into the lift with uneven steps, your mind still overwhelmed by everything that happened within that room. You don't know where to begin sifting through that mess of threats, doubts, evidence, and falsehoods. You've been in that room for so long and heard so much, you almost lost track of everything that was said. You hope you'll be able to remember and process everything at its own pace sometime soon, but for now, all you wish to do is rest and forget. Once the three of you have all entered, the door slowly closes behind you, you finally allow you some room to... Fuck! You can't help but jump as Jasper's fist loudly collides with the nearby wall at full speed, leaving behind a small dent in its wake. You immediately turn to face the Drake, whose irate expression leaves no doubts as to his feelings on the results of the meeting. God fucking damn it! He makes as if to hit the wall once again, only stopping himself mere inches away from impact to reel his trembling hand away, his teeth grinding against one another like clashing blades. Yes. My thoughts exactly, Mary. Sleepy, let's end this video right here. It's really long. It's like 50 minutes plus. Hope you like the video. No more feature in the future. Hopefully you like the subscribe, comment down below what you think about the video, or maybe you're gonna... It's okay, just keep suggesting me games. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna play it, because I have like a list of games that I haven't finished or even started. And so you can see we have Being a Dick, No More Future. What else is there? A lot more, like Corrupted Kingdoms. I'm still waiting for those updates, you know, more updates. Monster Girl Island, I guess, again. What else? There's a couple of games I'm forgetting, but other than that, thank you for watching. Hope you had a wonderful stay for this video. See ya. Bye.